Now to the Fox News voter fraud unit in a shocking case in West Virginia. Prosecutors say Lincoln County Sheriff Jerry Bowman tried to steal an election by stuffing the ballot box with illegal absentee ballots. Bowman was running for a county circuit clerk in the Democratic primary in 2010. Well, he pled guilty this past week to a voter fraud-related charge, conspiracy against rights. They say he admitted submitting more than 100 fraudulent ballot applications and even voted some of the illegal ballots himself. The prosecutors say he sat with voters in their homes as they filled out the ballot applications. And when we confronted him outside court, Bowman refused to say anything. Sheriff, why did you try to steal the election? Sheriff, why did he try and fake the absentee ballots? Does he have anything to say to the voters that he frauded? Well, he wasn't talking, but the candidate who lost and charges the election was at first stolen from him is County Circuit Clerk Charles Brumfield. He told us that he was ahead on election night by 235 votes, but batches of new absentee ballots suddenly started appearing out of nowhere all election night until he lost. How did it feel to realize that you were a victim of voter fraud?
Well, actually, it's hurtful. You know, you just didn't think that that would happen today, in today's society.
If you attempt to chip away at our democracy, if you attempt to manipulate the system, then you will face the punishment.
Well, a judge later tossed out hundreds of absentee ballots and eventually declared that Brumfield won. Joining us now from Charleston, West Virginia, is the chair of the Lincoln County Republican Party, who's running for sheriff herself, Lisa Ramey. Lisa, welcome. Thanks for joining us this morning. First question, how bad is voter fraud in your county?
Voter fraud is widespread in Lincoln County and all of southern West Virginia for many years. The Democratic machine, between 1984 and 1991, we had more than 75 people convicted of various vote buying, fraud, extortion charges.
Well, you know, people around the country, they say, well, there is no such thing as voter fraud. You know, they say it's very rare, doesn't happen. What do you say about that?
Well, it's alive and well in West Virginia, and particularly in southern West Virginia.
What type of tricks have you seen?
Well, I've seen slates being passed out. I've seen money exchange hands. I've seen liquor bottles being passed. It's been going on for more than 50 years in our county, and our esteemed leaders, including our current governor, Earl Ray Tomblin, who was in the Senate for over 30 years and is currently governor, has not even spoken out against the crimes or condemned the crimes or congratulated the federal prosecutors on the recent charges.
Well, the governor's not here to defend himself, but the Secretary of State, Natalie Tennant, certainly, and she's a Democrat, has certainly gone after this, and the prosecutors, the federal prosecutor, Booth Goodwin, they say that voter fraud will not be tolerated, and this case shows that it will be prosecuted in West Virginia. Are you heartened, at least, that there are these two guilty pleas? Also, Donald Whitten, by the way, the clerk, pled guilty to lying about the alleged scheme. I mean, at least you got two guilty pleas in federal court now.
Well, yes, we're hopeful that about the two guilty pleas, but in the prior federal investigations, there's been many people involved, and only few people get convicted, and the sentences are so light, then the corruption never stops. So that's what worries us. We want the maximum penalties for all the crimes that they have done.
Yeah, how do you think we can stop voter fraud in this country? How do you think is the corruption, as you put it, how can it stop?
Well, we need accountability all the way from the top down in the United States. And we need accountability. We could implement a voter ID policy program, and we could also encourage our governor to call for the Federal Election Bureau to take over the elections in Lincoln County for a couple of years to regain the public trust.
You think the feds should actually come in and take over the elections in your county?
Well, I do, because we've had a history of corruption now for more than 50 years, and it doesn't seem to get any better. When people get a slap on the hand and not all parties involved ever get sentenced or pay a price for what they've done to the honest people of Lincoln and Logan and Boone and Mingo counties, it doesn't send a clear message enough that this is not going to be tolerated. And
finally, Mr. Bowman and Mr. Whitten, they both pled guilty. They'll be sentenced in June. They have both resigned, and they're barred from running for public office for the rest of their life. Do you think this will stop the voter fraud that occurs in your county?
No, I do not. I feel it is widespread and it is very deep, and it runs down to local people being involved, and they basically get their hands slapped and they're right out doing it again, the next election. It's a way to infiltrate money into people's economy, and until the state gets serious about what needs to be done and maximum penalties are involved, I feel this will go on and on and on. We have never been able to have a fair and honest election in Lincoln County and probably all of southern West Virginia and maybe all of West Virginia. We really don't know how deep it goes.
Well, I'm sure there have been some honest elections, of course, but at least in this situation they have gotten these convictions. Lisa Ramey, the Republican chairwoman of the Lincoln County Republican Party, we thank you for joining us today on the Fox News Channel. And by the way, as we always say, if anyone suspects potential problems where you live, voter fraud at foxnews.com is our address. We want to know, and we're on these cases.